Welcome to the first episode of The Chair. I'm your host, Ramona Wright, and I'm so excited to be talking to some really dear sister friends. I'm going to be talking to Sarah Garcia Azad, founder and blogger of prettyintelligent.com. I'm also going to be talking to Dr. Lisa Upshaw, a chiropractor, acupuncturist, and holistic health practitioner, and amazing, amazing healer all around, my personal physician. And also Haily Zaki. She is the chief operative of Secret Agent, and she's also the co-founder of the LA Design Festival, which is going to be coming up in June. And I have to admit that this is going to be a really interesting conversation because we all know each other, all personal friends, sometimes I think going way back, more years than we'll say. So my goal is that today we're going to keep it real. We're going to talk about work-life balance and the changes that we experience as women once we get married and have babies. But before we talk a little bit about those changes, I want to talk a little bit about why I created the chair. I created the chair because my goal is to help people move through and overcome major life changes. Last year, I went through my own major life change. I decided to go back to school, change careers, and I became a certified integrative wellness and life coach. And essentially what I do is I help people get unstuck. I help people move through and be more empowered in their four body systems, their mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual states. And one of the things that I noticed while, I guess you could say coaching or empowering people, is a common theme of people feeling that they're stuck when they go through life changes. Some of those changes we all know too well. Maybe it's the death of a loved one, perhaps it's divorce, or it's a breakup or a job loss. And I can relate to literally all of those things. 7 years ago, I went through my own breakup. I was in a 11-year relationship from 19 to 31, even though I still only look like I'm in my 20s. And got out of that and was really happy to do so. It really changed my life. And also, 5 years ago, I went through a job loss. I was laid off from a really high-profile position. Didn't think it would happen to me. I think everyone, many times gets this great job and thinks you're going to be there forever. And then all of a sudden you get a pink slip. And then lastly, in 2012, probably the greatest change of my life was the death of my mom. My mom transitioned from an unexpected heart attack. And it's like, what do you do when that happens? And so for me, the goal of the chair is to help people, again, get up, move through unexpected life changes and know that they can overcome them. And I do that by talking to great people like the ladies I'm going to be talking to today. My goal is that we'll be transparent, we'll share stories of empowerment, and let you all know that you're not alone out there and you too can take steps to move through unexpected life changes. So, with that said, one of the greatest life changes that many people experience is getting married and becoming parents. And specifically for women, once we become moms, we no longer are single ladies or, often by ourselves. Or once we become married, we're cohabitating with someone and then we grow a family. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is how do you move through those changes? Who do you become once you become a mother? Once you become a wife, perhaps? Once you become a baby mama? I'm the product of a dynamic single mother who did get married later in life. But I wanted to talk to all of you because you all are married, you have children, and you're also amazing bosses, entrepreneurs, and you're handling a lot gracefully. But I wanted to talk about those not so graceful times. So to start off with, maybe each of you could paint a picture of what a day in your life looks like. A real day, like keep it real, a real day in the life of what it looks like. And maybe you could include, what you do at work, work-life balance stuff, maybe no work-life balance, how many children you have, and a little bit about your spouses. Dr. Lisa, do you want to start?
Sure. So a day in the life in my home, it depends on the day. Mm-hmm. I work in the office 3 days a week. I work out of the office. Doesn't mean I'm not working, but I work out of the office those other days. It usually starts off with hearing the alarm, hitting it, trying to go back to sleep and get 5 more minutes. But it's like, okay, I got to get up because I have to get lunch ready, breakfast ready. Of course, Gia up, my daughter up, make sure her uniform is ironed and all that good stuff. So it's like the morning hustle is no joke. The morning is like by the time you get your kid off to school or daycare or whatever, it feels like the day is half over.
Sure.
So it's the morning hustle. It's trying not to lose my cool because she wants to take forever to tie her shoes or something like that. And you're just like, hurry up, let's go. And get in the car and eat your food, eat your breakfast. So then getting to school, then for me, if I'm going to the office, I go right to the office. Probably try to get there like 5 minutes before a patient so I'm not walking in after a patient, which sometimes happens. Try to get set up really quick. And then from there until I'm done treating patients, it's like maybe I sit down, maybe I don't. It's like a sprint. Maybe I eat. I try to eat. I think most of us moms can relate. Trying to eat lunch can be, or dinner or breakfast can be a battle sometimes. So just make sure I eat, go try to run errands, have to pick up groceries, get food, whatever. Maybe it's teacher appreciation week like last week and I had to run all these errands, get all the teachers' gifts, pick her up. And then it's the nighttime hustle. So then it's get home. She has homework, get homework done, take a bath, get dinner ready, get to bed, read a story, go to sleep. They come out like 3 times. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Right. No, it's not going to be cold tomorrow. No, your pinky toe doesn't itch. No, the moon is not. I want some water. Like stay in your bed. Mm-hmm. And then when you try to sit down and do something for you, answer emails, maybe watch a show, you find yourself trying to stay awake and fight sleep because you're exhausted. So that's typically. And I should add, that's when my husband is not around because he travels a lot for work and he's gone for months at a time, which he is now.
Oh wow!
So he's gone for like 4 months. So I kind of have the single parent and co-parent lifestyle intermittently.
Wow. And mind you, that was a day in your life.
Yes.
That sounded like a week.
And I have 1 kid. So the other ladies will share theirs and it probably won't. Mine will sound like a vacation probably to their stories.
Haily, I know that you have 3 little people ranging from what ages?
6. Basically, my eldest is 6, and then my middle son is 4, and then my baby daughter is 2.
2. And little Hannah Faye.
Yes.
She is a cute little baby doll, by the way.
She's a firecracker.
So, same question. What does a day in the life look like for you?
I mean, it really doesn't look that much different than yours. That morning hustle is brutal. The only difference is that when I wake up at like 6 a.m., I have to make 2 lunch boxes. And I have to get 2. Neither of my sons are morning people, so that morning wake up is always brutal. Mm-hmm. Getting them out the door. Thankfully, my husband is somewhat helpful, and he can like hang out with my daughter while I take the boys to school, and then I come back and I feed my daughter, and then I get her ready, and then she goes off with her babysitter for the day, and then I make a mad dash for the office. I have an office, thankfully, that is not too far away from home, so I also work 3 days in the office, and then Mondays and Fridays remotely. Although I do take my daughter to work with me sometimes on Mondays and Fridays because she loves the office and it allows me to squeeze in just a little bit more writing time or office time. And then it's like the work hustle for most of the day. Thankfully, I have a really great crew of colleagues, and we make it a point to stop working and eat lunch every day because
that's really good.
It's probably the only meal I eat a day, and we all are foodies. So we like plan our lunches accordingly. We're like, okay, we're going to definitely take an hour for lunch today. We're going to go here. We're going to stop working. It's a thing. Thank God. And then work usually ends around school pickup time. So thankfully, my babysitter will pick up my eldest at 2:30 and or 1:30. We end our day around 5, make a mad dash home, and cook dinner, get them bathed, do all of that. Finally get them to bed around, and this is shameful, like 9:30 or 10 sometimes.
Me too.
Shocking.
They're all night owls. And also my husband works in video games, so he has this like crazy schedule. He's also basically away all the time. Mm-hmm. He's gone from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So if I made the kids stick to a rigorous schedule, and if they went to bed at 7 or 8, they'd never see Dad. So of course I get them like somewhat calm, bathed, ready for bed, and then he comes home. Mm-hmm. and then they go crazy, and it takes me another hour to get them calm, and I finally get them to bed. Then I have to spend like 45 minutes actually talking to my husband and hanging out with him. So we hang out, and then he falls asleep, and then when everybody's asleep, that's when I get to like do some emails, write some stuff, or more often than not, I just drink a glass of wine, go to sleep, and then I wake up at 4 a.m. the next day to do like 2 hours of writing before the hustle starts again.
So I think also, too, just to give people some context, because I really do, not that this is any offense to the other two ladies because you all are super moms, but I really do think that Haily is really a secret agent or a super mom with all that you have going on. But maybe you could just tell the audience a little bit about what Secret Agent is and also about the Design Festival, because I think that will put things into context even greater.
Sure.
For people about how crazy busy your life is.
Well, Secret Agent is my company that I started in 2008, and we are a communications agency. So we started doing just PR, and then we kind of evolved with time, and now we do public relations and content development and event production for everything from Modernism Week to clients like Room and Board. So it's, my day job is really fun because we have these great design clients. Then, about 7 years ago, we started something called the LA Design Festival, which initially was just a passion project. We really love design, and we wanted to see some attention paid to Los Angeles as the global design city that it is. New York and lots of other cities get a lot of the credit, but LA is like teeming with creativity. So we created this, and it grew exponentially over 7 years into a whole other animal. And it takes place in June 8th through 11th. It's we sort of distilled it down to a long weekend. It used to be 3 weeks, which was like utter insanity. But I came to my senses and we shortened it.
Very cool. And it is amazing. I highly recommend everybody check it out.
Go.
Yes.
You should. Yeah. All of the events are free, except for the opening party, which is also a fundraiser. But all of the events are free, and we really try to keep it sort of democratic in terms of design disciplines. So there's architecture, there's interior design, there's graphic design, there's experiential design, just a little bit of everything, because that's what's amazing about LA is all the different creative stuff that happens here.
And yeah, it is knowing Haily over the years and seeing her start this company, start this festival that is a citywide event is pretty extraordinary. And I think the thing that I'm so fascinated by just with the two of you already is, again, this is just a day in your lives. And last but not least, Sarah, you have, I think, a really interesting opportunity as well because you work from home. But also, I know that you have an amazing blog called Pretty Intelligent, but you also are in a startup phase as an entrepreneur. So tell us what your day looks like with two little guys.
Thanks. So, yeah, two little guys. So little Cyrus just turned 2, and Darius is 3.5. So they are 19, 20 months apart, and boys. And they are just nuts. I mean, Haily, just that energy doesn't stop. I think my mornings, I am the luckiest, I think, of us because my husband is an amazing, not only support, but an amazing morning person. He pops out of bed at 6 a.m. and my older son pops out of bed at 6 a.m. and is like, Dad, we got to work out. So they go back to the gym, and whether it's yoga, if both boys wake up early, they just want daddy time. And my husband works from home. I also work from home. And once his day starts, and it can start with 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning conference calls, and then he is cranking all day. So for him, his morning is really sacred time with the boys, which is awesome because it usually means that I'm sleeping in. So I usually get to sleep and have them kind of jumping and climbing on me at about 8 o'clock in the morning. So I don't set an alarm. My boys jumping on me is my alarm. Sometimes I get a fat lip, but it's all good. And literally, it's like the hour between 8 and 9 is complete chaos. So it really is, packing lunch for my older boy and getting breakfast ready for the two of them. And again, because my husband's awake and he's already on it, so he's usually helping make breakfast while maybe I'm preparing lunch. And then the babysitter usually shows up at 8. So it's kind of that 8 o'clock minute is when everybody kind of jumps into the kitchen and makes it happen. So I may go and get the boys dressed. I tend to get them ready together because we have this really, really special, really awesome little preschool that Darius is at. And they have this morning ceremony called Morning Circle, where all the parents are invited every single day to sit under like olive trees, and they sing songs, and they explore the different cultures. So the baby likes to come along. And now he's 2 and he knows the drill. So I kind of get to take them, and I don't know. That's it. That's the best start to my morning, is really just getting to be around other parents, watch the kids singing and dancing, and just getting out that loose energy and the cool morning air. And it helps warm me up. And I sit there and drink my coffee and I dance with my boys. And it's like half an hour of bliss. And then I feel good. And I feel like that for me has become something that is kind of sacred to me. I don't want anyone to mess with my morning time with them, because that fills my cup. And once like I feel like I've had that touch base with them, then I can go all day and work and crank and try to focus and not feel guilty that I'm not spending time with them because I got some fun playtime. So.
And what then do you go off to? I know that you just came back from China.
And it's gone a week. Well, like 8 days in China.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what took you there?
So what took me there, I am definitely in startup phase. And what I'm starting up right now is a brand and a company. It's called Humble Bebe, and it's Bebe, so Humble Bebe. And I started off just knowing I know product development really well, and now I know baby products really well. So why shouldn't I develop phenomenal products or take products that I like and just improve them and make them that much better? So I started with cloth diapers, and I think I have like 30,000 diapers coming in this week that are going to be selling. I mean, I just launched a few months ago and it's really growing fast. Well, not a few months, last November. But it's growing quickly. So I think that, and my husband really pushed me to do that. He was like, start with one, launch something, get a small win. It'll build some confidence and build some momentum. And that's exactly what happened. I just followed like that exact advice and was like, all right. They're diapers. It's kind of embarrassing. And now, like, they're blowing up and they're selling really well. So now I've got like 25 products on the roster. I'm designing a kind of a design, like a higher end fashion driven designer diaper bag line, and everything from nursing covers. I mean, it's really accessories for the fashion driven mother. Somebody who doesn't want to be carrying a diaper bag that screams baby.
Sure. And I know that you talk about product development. You came from the beauty industry as well. So you're basically sort of, I guess, applying your past career with your experience as a mom. And it sounds like you've found a niche, too, of needs that all of you probably have, of being these fashion-forward entrepreneurial women and being able to obviously turn that into a business. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really, really fun and exhausting, but great.
Well, and I wanted that keyword exhausting. I am exhausted after listening to all that you all do. And I really wanted to give our listeners who are yet parents an idea of what it really looks like to quote unquote have it all, right? And so this next question is for all the single ladies out there and gents who want to have it all. They want to be a boss. They want to be that entrepreneur. They want to be the mom. They want that husband. They want the, house on the hill and the picket fence and the dog. But it sounds like it's not always glamorous, right? It doesn't sound like it's a glamorous life. So if you all could go back in time, what's maybe one thing that you wish you could have prepared for or knew before you jumped the broom or before you had little people? Just one thing.
One thing?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
If you can narrow it down. If you think of more, it's fine. But maybe like that number one thing, like, oh my God, I wish I knew this.
If I can share a quick little realization I had.
Sure.
I was working with a patient and we were talking about Disney princesses. And we were talking, it was a younger patient of mine, so she grew up with different princesses than I did. Like, she was talking about ones, I was like, I don't even know about that one. But anyway, I realized that I was stuck in this former, mindset, which, we know that media influences kids. But I realized that Cinderella was my favorite Disney character. And I think when I was younger, I grew up really believing that there's like this transition from hard work to finding Prince Charming to then like going to the castle and having this like wonderful life up on the hill. And so I think my expectations were just totally unrealistic. Not to say that I don't love my husband. I know we all love our husbands, but it's work. It's just a lot of work. It's everyday work. So I would say just be prepared to work. And if you're not working, then the marriage may not be working. It's just my honest opinion about it.
No, that sounds about right. And anything, as entrepreneurs, we know anything that's successful takes work and intentionality. Both parties, obviously. Haily?
I mean, I think the notion of motherhood really gets romanticized a lot. And the idea of having it all gets romanticized. And like you said, it's not glamorous all the time. I mean, it's worth it and it's amazing and it's really fun, but it, like anything else, it takes perseverance. It takes a certain amount of flexibility, the ability to improvise on the fly. You can't think it all through. Nothing goes according to plan. Ever. And you got to be cool with it. You got to roll with the punches. I mean, honestly, I don't know if there's anything that I would have done differently. I kind of entered motherhood unexpectedly. I didn't want children necessarily. I wasn't planning on it. I was sort of like, I thought I was on this certain trajectory and then surprise. And then we were like, okay, cool, we got this. And then suddenly we had a baby. And then we had another baby. And then it was like, okay, why not go for a third?
Wow.
Why not?
Keep it going.
And I think, if anything, the one thing that I was actually shocked by is how difficult it is to actually find good daycare when you have kids.
Yes. How it's expensive.
It's super expensive. It's much more complicated than you think.
So hard work and... I was listening, I promise. Perseverance, would you say?
The ability to improvise.
Okay, yeah.
And be cool with nothing ever going to plan.
Being flexible, sounds like. So hard work, flexibility. And Sarah, what would you say?
Wow, it's hard to follow that. But I would say probably kindness, like really being kind to yourself. I think it's really easy, and especially if you're a driven person, if you're kind of type A and you really like to work hard and you like to crank, once you've had your own life and your own career and you're like, oh, I can work an 18-hour day, no problem. I can meet that deadline, no problem. All of a sudden, you can't make that deadline because maybe you're on point, but the kids get sick or this happens or that happens. And if you try to be a control freak about things, you are constantly feeling behind, constantly disappointing yourself. And I think that just being kind to yourself and being okay with things not being perfect, which is so hard for the like driven type A control freak kind of peeps like me and all of us, everybody here. I think that's one of the hardest things the adjustment is just not being in control of your own schedule and your own productivity, really. And I think that the more that I've really had to learn, and I'm still practicing constantly, just to be kind to myself and to talk to myself nicely and to go, you know what? It's just one of those days. Just let it go and start fresh tomorrow, because it could be a rough day or it could be an awesome day. It could be like the sun is shining and it's beautiful and I really wanted to get back to work. But then a friend's like, hey, play date at the beach in 5 minutes. And I decide to ditch everything. If I get down on myself, then I'm not going to be present. I'm not going to enjoy time with the kids. And I'm going to miss that moment. And I think that is the flexibility. That's the sweet spot that I'm in of being able to, that's the sweet spot of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Is that once in a while, obviously, unless you have patients or clients that are waiting on you, once in a while, when you have a free moment and you're able to play hooky or ditch, you can do it. And you need to do it because those are those moments when you're like, my kids really need me right now and I really need this. And this is fun. And
I can really,
it is what it is.
And I appreciate you saying that. I can relate to that because growing up in a single parent household, my mom was an entrepreneur pretty much my entire life. I don't think she really worked traditional jobs, but how she did it, I don't know. She always showed up at our games or our events. She would make time to cook breakfast. She would do meal preps before that was the thing on Sundays and cook a big pot of beans or stew so that all she had to do was just heat it up. But I think obviously the three of you do fall into a very unique position as entrepreneurs because you do control your schedules, you can make time, but not everybody, even if they are entrepreneurs, makes time, right? Sometimes people will just say, you know what, my first priority is my job, my family comes second, or my health comes last. And so I think that, all of you, what I hear you saying is that yes, you've got the beauty of being entrepreneurs, but it also sounds like you're being intentional about making space and time for your children. I also think that it's one of those things, too, what we don't talk about enough is it sounds like also the mourning of motherhood, the sadness sometimes of saying goodbye to that single person that had complete autonomy and control over her schedule and sort of being at the mercy of people who are, not even, 3 feet tall. But how maybe can you talk about, maybe you all can talk a little bit about what I would call the birth of a mother based on that New York Times article. I don't know if you all saw that article, but a little bit about it, just to give you a little background. And you can sort of relate this to your own experiences if it resonates with you. But it highlights the work of a psychiatrist named Daniel Stern. And during the 1990s, in his book, The Motherhood Constellation, and also The Birth of a Mother, he writes that for most women, pregnancy and new motherhood is a joy, at least some of the time. But most mothers also experience worry, disappointment, guilt, Sarah, which I'm sure you were talking about, that, need to be kind, competition, frustration, and even anger and fear. So I wonder, do you all agree with the doctor's sentiments? And if so, he also says that giving birth to a new identity can be just as demanding as giving birth to a baby. And so becoming a mother is an identity shift, and one of the most significant, obviously, physical and psychological changes you'll ever experience. So it's like we all know that to be true, but how would you all say that maybe motherhood has changed you for the best, but then also maybe motherhood has changed you, I wouldn't say for the worse, but maybe brought out some things in you that you didn't know were there, if you feel comfortable sharing that?
Good stuff. I was like, there's a whole lot resonating.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I can go for it and speak to some of this. When you were listing off all of those words, I think the one that kind of hits me the hardest is guilt. There definitely was a mourning and kind of a sadness of like, my freedom. Like I loved my freedom and also having kids later. I think, I had my whole 20s to myself and my career and travel and made some money and had a lot of fun. So I think that made the mourning harder because I had more to give up. But the guilt factor, I think, as an entrepreneur, for me, is very real because of the fact that, maybe it would be different and easier if I worked a 9 to 5 and I was accountable to somebody else. And I was like, sorry, kids, mama's got to go to work because I got to go. Where for me, because it's a choice that I'm making. I do feel the pressure and the competition and the judgment of the other mothers who look at me and go like, what are you doing? Your kids are growing so fast. They're so sweet. And I'm in a really great position where financially I'm one of the lucky ones right now at this time in my life that I don't have to work. I don't have to bring home a paycheck. I could go to Mommy and Me all day long and play at the park every day. But that's not feeding me and fulfilling me. So it really is like you have to turn off the racket of other people's judgments and what other people think and really, really check in to yourself and say, what is filling my cup? This stimulates me creatively, intellectually. I'm tapping into a part of me that's very important for me. And I think that it will teach my kids something great of mom's pursuing things that are important to mom. And it's not just all about you. And that's a lesson I had to learn from my late mother, who had 7 of us and put all her kids first and spent her entire life raising children. And after we all moved out, she had nothing. She was bored. She had no friendships she nurtured. She had no career that she had. She didn't have hobbies that she had pursued because she gave everything to us. And I saw her quite depressed in her young, 60 years old, and feeling really sad and lonely and uneducated and depressed. And all we could do is go, well, what are you thinking, Mom? Like, you're an amazing mom. And it wasn't enough. It didn't fill her cup. So I've learned from that lesson. And I think that's why I'm making the choices I'm making. But all those things, the anger and the fear and the sadness and mourning your young single life. But it's still so sweet. So it's worth it.
It's totally worth it. And all those emotions that he sort of talks about, they're basic human emotions. I don't think it's just mothers and just new mothers who have that. I mean, I feel like I'm the product of a single mother as well. I kind of call it the scorned woman upbringing. My mom drove it into us. You have to be educated. You have to be independent because you never know what's going to happen. You can't rely on your husband. You have to be your own person. And for whatever my mom's faults and foibles might have been, she was pretty head on right about that. Like, you have to be your own person. And as a parent, I just want to kind of instill that same fearlessness in my kids. And I think it's impossible not to feel guilt at some point about something or other. But I don't really mourn. I think I was probably a horrible 20-something-year-old. I was intensely selfish and completely impulsive and did whatever I wanted to do. And now, every decision that I make, I sort of have this, I have my kids in mind. I have so much, I'm a lot more thoughtful about my decisions now.
Sure.
And I think having the kids has actually made me a better person. I'm, as weird as that sounds, but I'm better at making decisions that affect them, that affect my husband. You see the long game a lot more. And before having kids, I only ever thought about myself and tomorrow. And I think it's definitely made me a better person than I was.
Dr. Lisa?
Worry was really big for me. I really had a difficult transition between single life and motherhood. I think because things happened so fast for me. I met my husband. We were engaged, married, pregnant, all within 10 months. So my life changed so fast. And I think I had a significant postpartum depression period that I didn't know how to label or name. And I don't really think it's until now that I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, I was really in a dark place. I was overcome with worry. I didn't really have anger. I had some fear. I had a lot of, I often described it to friends, that I felt like I was in a familiar place, but at the same time, it was like the street names were different and the house colors changed. It was familiar, but it was just different in slight ways, and I didn't know how to navigate through this new world. So it was really hard for me, and I think that not enough women talk about postpartum depression, which is why I wanted to bring it up, because
I'm glad you are.
It feels very lonely. It feels, I had a lot of friends that, would call and say, do you want to come out? We haven't seen you. You never come out anymore. And I just was just resistant. No, I can't leave my child. I'm nursing. I can't.
How did you work through it? What got you through it and helped you overcome it?
My work was my relief. Going to work, I cut back quite a bit, but I did maintain some patience. And when I would go to work, I would feel like I had a part of me back. And it wasn't really me. It was really just channeling a different sort of energy. It was a spiritual moment for me to be with other people. And that I clung to. And then I think as my hormones balanced over time, I think weaning, I nursed for 22 months. So weaning and my hormones changing. My daughter slept with us. So once she got into her own space and I started to reclaim more of me back, more of my body, more of my space, more of my time, I think it started to change, working more, teaching and having something else to focus on. And then stopping and listening to my husband and him having mentioned things and saying, oh my gosh, like he's really right. Like I definitely need to get back to some things that made him fall in love with me, that made me confident in who I was. And I just started to see like little glimmers of truth and held on to them and worked towards that.
That's beautiful. And I have to say thank you for being so brave and transparent to share that, because so many women talk about that postpartum depression. And one, I think we live in a society where we don't talk about the dark side of our feelings. We don't talk about the dark side of parenting, the hard side. Everything is a bed of roses and I love my children. And there are those times when, you just want to probably scream and, kick everybody out of the house, but not really. So I really appreciate you all being so transparent and honest about your feelings. Each of you have talked a little bit about, I've heard you mention your husbands in little ways, but I'd love to know more about how they are maybe playing a role of supporting you all as entrepreneurs, and maybe, ways that you feel like, you could get more support from them if that is a need. Because I will say one thing that I have encountered in preparing for this interview is I've spoke to a lot of girlfriends who are married, and even girlfriends who are not married. And the number one thing that they said they wanted more of was their husband's time, the presence of their husband. That men, it seems like, talk about workaholism, men's lives are really engulfed in work, and that's where their identity is. And so I was curious if you all have had that experience as well, or if there's other things that you find might be a rub. And I'm not trying to put anybody in a hot seat, but I kind of do want to know. So whatever you all are comfortable with sharing.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, my husband is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of like this silent support, but he has a really demanding job.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think just like you said, men they have this incredible like mono focus. And so when he is like all about work, he's all about work.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult for him to have anything else. So he goes to work and he comes home. And he goes to work and he comes home. And in the time that he goes to work, I have to make all of like a million decisions about the kids. Like, what are they going to do for their science project? This and that, X, Y, Z. And there's like a gajillion different synapses and decisions being made. And he just has to go to work and come home. So I'm not saying that I resent him, but there are days when he comes home and he's like, hey, let's have a few minutes to hang out and talk. And I'm like, no, dude, no. I am tired. And I don't want to talk to you because I'm mad. But I mean, and I kind of, in a sense, resented him for a while there because his life didn't change as much as mine did.
Mm-hmm.
I reshuffled things. You play this juggling game, and like his life didn't change that much. Mm-hmm. Now that the kids are a little bit older, he's much more. He knows what to do with them more than I think he did with little tiny babies, and so now he's much more involved, and he tries to. He's at a place in his career where he can take a little bit more time to balance that like work-life thing. But I think women are just more intrinsically able to balance multiple things, and men are just, not to say this in a negative way, they're just better at being selfish. Like they're like, I got to do this, so I'm doing this now, and they block out everything else. And I think we're always like, we have to do this, but we have to do this, and I don't want to disappoint over here, and I don't want to like fail anybody over here. So you're constantly double guessing yourself and like playing this balancing game, and they don't have to balance anything. They don't think about it naturally. I mean,
Sure.
They do eventually think about it, but.
What would you say, and this would go for all of you, so if you can sort of share one thing that you feel that you would love more support as it relates from your husbands, if that makes sense for you, but also maybe, Haily, too, talk about one thing that you feel like, wow, I don't know how I would do this without him.
I mean, Brian is amazing because even if he's got all this juggling all of the stuff at work, like he's super much more research-based than I am. Mm-hmm. And so whenever we have to make decisions, he's like on top of it. And he's got like this giant analytical brain, which I don't have. I make all decisions based on impulse, and he makes all decisions based on sort of data, which is great. Together, we usually make the right decision. Right. Usually. But But I mean, having that parity, having somebody who you can depend on those days when you just can't handle anything is really important. Because, we handle everything, we do it all. Then there are days when you just don't want to do anything.
Well, and I wonder, do we as women ask for help enough? Do we really leverage the fact that, hey, I do have a partner, and regardless of what he has going on, I'm going to say, Uncle, I need your help today. You need to step up and step in. Maybe Dr. Lisa or Sarah, you could talk a little bit about that.
I'm really guilty of not asking. And I think to his credit, it's usually because I don't have to ask. Mm-hmm. He's very, very intuitive to what needs to get done in the house and the kids. And I mean, I really could not ask for a better partner. I mean, we just kind of just tag team projects, and it just gets done very seamlessly. We don't tend to argue or bicker or fight. And it's because he knows. He has so much respect, and I can see it. He doesn't say it, but I know it. He has so much respect for me. And it's when he sees how much I'm doing, or I love to cook. So if I'm cooking dinner and doing this whole thing, and then the boys at night tend to get clingy. They're in the morning, they want daddy. At night, it's all about mama. And they want mommy to read stories and mommy to put on pajamas and mommy to brush their teeth. And while I'm doing that, dishes are done. Like, he's like, done. Like, I'm just going to crank out the dishes while you handle the kids. Because then he knows once the kids are down, even if it's only 30 minutes we get to spend together, he'd rather spend that time together than I'm in the kitchen doing dishes while he's sitting on the couch watching TV. So, I don't know. I don't know what the advice is. Just marry a smart, thoughtful person, I guess. Marry an intelligent man who's, not obsessed with watching football that much. I don't know.
I think empathy and that intuition, which very few people, let alone, unfortunately, and don't kill me, men, but very few men have that. But I think that, it sounds like that's something that most women would really love, right? We want men to read our minds. Like, can't you see that I need your help?
And it is when I struggle, really, when I am struggling over something, he's the first one to go, why are you not asking for help? And he'll see me like dragging kids out the door and trying to like make a cup of coffee while the car is warming up. And he's looking at me like, are you crazy? I'm standing right here. Ask me to help you. And I never ask. So I think we tend to think, and maybe because we are such multitaskers and
you can do it all.
We
can do it all, and I will do it all. And most of the time, if I have to do it all, then it takes me longer to explain what I need than to just get it done myself.
But it can save you. It can save you a little bit. Dr. Lisa, maybe you can share a little bit about your experience too.
Well, it's interesting for me because I have this dual living experience where he's gone out of the state or out of country for chunks of time, and then he's home. And even if he's home, he may be off a project and very available or not available. So I think if I could ask for one more thing from him, to be perfectly honest, it would be to find a way to sometimes turn off from work, because he's very work driven. Like, he's very focused on his passion, his career, his work. He loves it. And sometimes I want to suck him out and bring him back into home life. But with that being said, and to his credit, he is so phenomenal at being of assistance whenever I request it or whenever I ask it. With what Sarah said, he's just like, what do you need? Like, I'm here. Hello. Like, why are you looking all frustrated? And I'm like, because I need to get the shoe in the dryer and can you get that pot? And he's like, yes. Okay. What else? So it's just asking more. He's fantastic with being supportive, but he does need direction. Sometimes he's intuitive, but a lot of times he's in his work mind.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, asking for more help, and also, knowing that we can do it all, but it doesn't mean we should. And also it sounds like, you all actually are really blessed in more ways than one. You have good partners. Obviously, there's no such thing as utopia. You have great work lives. And it also sounds like, you've all been very clear about, the areas that you feel like you could improve on or enhance your experience as mothers. But the one thing that I'm taking away from all of this is that motherhood is a very personalized, individualized experience, and that there are no cookie cutters. And as my mom would say, God didn't make paper dolls. So I wish we had more time to keep this conversation going, but I'm so grateful to all of you for being so transparent and honest about some of your experience as these dynamic divas, working moms, entrepreneurs. Your experiences, I know, will encourage a lot of women that they too can move through the changes of motherhood and marriage. Before we wrap up, I also want to give a special shout out to our producing partners, the Network Studios, Loveless Media, and WilesMag.com. I also want to give a shout out to our, what would we call you, Rena? Are you our engineer, Rena, who's been amazing, and Mike. The chair is produced in association with my wellness think tank, the Center of Leadership, Love, and Relationships. And you can check out my blog on leadloverelate.com to read the New York Times article that we mentioned in regards to the birth of a mother. You can get links to some other great resources like the blog Domestic Superwoman, and also a really cool podcast called Mom Life Yo, which is a radio show hosted by T. Lopez and Bregan Jane, which really highlights some really great experiences of millennial moms. And finally, you can learn more about me, my coaching practice, and upcoming events at leadloverelate.com. As we prepare to close, I just want to thank you all for listening and watching our first episode of The Chair. And feel free to share the podcast, obviously, the video, like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can follow us at The Chair Talks, plural with an S. And if you're going to talk about us, please do hashtag Chair Talks. And also let me know what you thought of the show. I want to know what you think, and also give me some suggestions for future topics. Till next time.